rather than doing it before I admit people. So I've got a little bit of housekeeping I'm taking care of in this first few minutes. So apologies for the housekeeping, but it makes my life easier. I don't have to edit the YouTube later to take out the slow parts at the beginning. All right, I've muted myself. Let's see. So how is everybody doing? We all seeing some interesting birds out there?
Went looking for the white-eyed vireo this morning. It wasn't a happy ending.
So I got a text from Mario that he did get it. Was that after you left?
Yeah, we were looking together and then he went off for a dental appointment and he came back after the dental appointment and he got it.
Yeah, that's the way birds are sometimes.
Yep.
And he was talking also about a possible American redstart. Are you still kind of going back and forth on whether to report that bird?
No, I'm not going to report it. We didn't get a good look at it. It had some yellow sort of on the side and the wing maybe, and it was browner than it was gray, so it wasn't the female. I don't know. We don't know what it was. It was exciting for a moment. You know how that is.
I am well aware of how that is. Yes, I'm very familiar with that phenomenon.
We did get a ridiculous number of kingbirds, like a dozen Cassin's kingbirds. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to post the live stream to the blog, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay. So the live stream, the YouTube live stream, for those who are not participating via Zoom, is now available on the Carp Without Cars blog. So I think all the housekeeping is taken care of, and we can move on. Let's make sure I'm not missing anything. Nope, I've got it all. One bit of housekeeping that I did want to share. So I don't see Jim Williams in the meeting, which is too bad. But after the last meeting on swallows and swifts, we were talking about the swifts going into roost in the chimney. And he told a story about going to a place in Portland. There's a school there where in September, people gather by the hundreds on the grass to watch the Vox's swifts, the migrating Vox swifts, go into the chimney there. And he shared a video with me that I just thought was amazing. It was really cool. A little bit of a wider angle than the one we shared during the meeting last week. So you can see this sort of swift tornado just kind of swirling around in the air before they start zipping down into the chimney. I thought it was really fun. I'm putting a link to it in the description of the YouTube live stream video. And also there's a link to it on the Carp Without Cars blog page about this meeting. So I don't want to take time to look at it now because I want time to talk about eBird, which is the real subject of this meeting. But it's there, and I want to just mention it if you want to see a very cool video of swifts going into roost. I recommend it. And it's neat too because you can hear all the crowd reaction. It's just really fun. And maybe it's, because of the current circumstances, the thought of being in a big group gathered like that to share this amazing spectacle of thousands of swifts flying into a chimney was just very cool and seemed like it would be a lot of fun. So I enjoyed watching that, and I encourage others to watch it. Let's see. Oh, and also on the subject of cool sightings. So I wanted to ask Jenny to share her and Craig's cool sighting. So tell us what you guys saw on the way back from, was it San Miguel Island or Santa Rosa Island?
Well, we were coming back from Santa Cruz Island, but earlier we had gone to Santa Rosa Island to go fishing, and that's where we found the black scoter. It was just unmistakable, beautiful bird. But when we were transiting back from, we were at, oh gosh, the front side of Santa Cruz Island, and we were coming back to the harbor in Santa Barbara. We were on the lookout for mylar balloons because they're frequently found just floating on the water, and we stop and pick them up and throw them in the trash later. So we were really focused on looking at things floating on the surface all the way back to town. And I was driving the boat, and we were going about 25 knots, which is pretty quick. And something just caught my attention out of the window, and I looked to see a large, bright white bird sitting on the water. And it looked different enough that it made me pause and think, well, what the heck? Let's just go look at it. It's cool. We'll figure out what it is. And as we approached it, it wasn't alarmed by us at all. We stayed a couple hundred feet away, but immediately I could tell it was a booby. I didn't know what kind, but I knew it was an interesting bird. I had no idea that it was really uncommon or rare here. So while we were getting looks at the bird, Craig was taking pictures with his phone. We didn't have a better camera. And I started taking notes on eBird to mark our location. I also texted Peter Gady, who's a great birder and a friend of mine, to get his initial feedback on what this could be. And he kind of gave me the rundown of masked boobies versus Nazca boobies and the difference between, which is really difficult to discern, but mainly one has a darker orange bill and the masked would have a lighter yellow pale bill. I described it as very pale, and we went on our merry way. We got looks for a few minutes at the bird, and it did take off flying, and it went in the direction back toward the islands. And Craig and I were just continuing our cruise home thinking, wow, that was a neat bird, really not knowing at all that it was pretty significant as far as sightings. Yeah. And just so random that our track from point A to point B took us in the path of this bird sitting there for so long.
And it was kind of, you were kind of out in the middle of the channel, right? Like kind of just halfway between Santa Cruz and Santa Barbara Harbor?
We were 8 miles from the harbor about. And
so farther than halfway, but yeah.
In one of the pictures, you can see some of the oil rigs behind the bird. So it's just interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, I was telling you, I had looked in Lehman's Birds of Santa Barbara County, and at least per Lehman, there's only one previous accepted record of a masked booby in Santa Barbara County, which is very cool to have, you know, such a rarity. And they have been showing up in recent years. Like they've seen them at Anacapa Island a few times over the last few years. And you know, it's only a few miles away. There's no reason why a booby that's at Anacapa wouldn't come on over into the Santa Barbara County side. But so far, you know, no one had seen one there. So that's really great. So, and I'm gonna show your photos later, because I wanted to give a demo in eBird of how rarities are handled in the whole eBird review process. So it's a very good example of a rare bird that's kind of in progress in terms of the review that gets done.
I hope someone sees it again and gets better photos and some more details.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's always the way too. It's like, boy, you know, you've got photos and they're quite suggestive. You know, I'm not the one making the decision, but I'd say that beak looks pretty good for a masked booby, but we'll see. Obviously they're taking their time and being careful. So
yeah,
but that's very cool. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep on moving. I'll make one more brief announcement, just very briefly. I just want to mention I'm working on a project that's sort of tangentially related to Carpinteria Birdwatchers, which is the idea of a nature festival in Carpinteria. Filene Wiggins, who's done the Christmas count in Carpinteria before, she's sorry, I should mute that so we don't have dings going out. Can you guys hear the ding that just happened, the notification at my end?
No.
No, oh great, okay. Anyway, she's organizing a nature festival for Carpinteria, and the first idea was it would be a birding festival, and in discussions with her, the idea has kind of evolved, and now we're talking about it being a living shoreline festival. So a festival that celebrates nature and the shore ecosystems and birds as a significant component of it. It's very early in the planning stages. You know, the process is just getting started. There's some initial meetings happening, but people seem favorable to the idea. You know, the people I've talked to think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great idea, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So you can sort of tentatively put that on your calendars for a year from now, maybe 2 years from now. We're not sure when the first event will actually be able to get off. But anybody who's interested in learning more about that, send me an email. Be happy to rope you into the discussions. And we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for people willing to do some organizing work on it. Or just give feedback if you're not interested in doing more than that. We'd still love to hear what people think about the idea. So with that said, let's get on to the actual topic, which is eBird. So this meeting is all about eBird, how to use eBird, sort of tips and tricks for using eBird. We've done a version of this meeting in the past at the library, but this is the first time we've done it online. And I'm going to do my best to give a thorough rundown of different aspects of how I use eBird, at least. It's a big part of how I do my birding these days. And it's a great resource, but there's a lot there that you wouldn't necessarily know about if you didn't take the time to dig through and find it. So hopefully I can go over some of that. Happy to hear things that other people are doing with eBird if you want to share that too. But I want to go kind of quick because last time talking about swallows and swifts I went way long, so I'm going to try and stick more to the schedule this time. So any questions though before I jump in and get started? I'll encourage people to keep yourselves muted when you're not talking, not asking questions. It helps in terms of not distracting me because I think, oh, someone's making a comment. I should stop and see what's going on. So, I encourage you, keep the mic off when you're not actually talking. But with that said, anybody wants to unmute and talk now, this would be a great opportunity to let me know what you're thinking or what any feedback on what we talked about so far, Yeah, Brody, I see you have your hand up. Tell us something, Brody.
I wanted to say that not too long ago, about a week ago, I saw Phainopepla just like swooping down over a red-tailed hawk. The red-tailed hawk for a second on the tree, it just like stayed there and just like was getting like annoyed and like But then eventually the Phainopepla got to it and the Phainopepla started driving it off. It went about 50 meters, I'd say, and then finally went back to the tree.
Yeah. So do you know if there's a nest, if the Phainopepla is nesting in that area? I mean, that's pretty much, it's often nesting behavior, right? That they're driving intruders away from the nest.
Yeah, I do not know, but yes, I have seen them liking at that little spot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Is
Cool.
there mistletoe there?
What?
Is there mistletoe in the tree that they hang
No,
out?
there's no mistletoe.
Yeah, mistletoe is a great attractant to Phainopepla. So they love those berries. Okay.
Yeah, we have a few pine trees though. Pine trees.
Yeah. Well, that's neat. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean during the nesting season, especially the birds, they have no fear. They're like any parent with young defenseless offspring that they're trying to protect. They will throw caution to the winds and just throw themselves right at the hawk or whatever.
We've had 2 birds come in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, very cool. Thanks for sharing. And I'm going to go on then and talk about eBird stuff. So when I talk about eBird, I want to get more specific because eBird has become kind of a whole ecosystem of websites and apps and tools. So there's the ebird.org website, which is sort of the original piece of eBird. And that's where you go in your web browser and you can interact with the data on eBird about birds and locations. And we'll talk about that a lot. There is the Macaulay Library, which is sort of a separate associated website. And that's the online archive that eBird uses for storing photos and videos and sound recordings that are associated with eBird checklists.
What was the second one again?
The Macaulay Library. And as you use eBird, you'll see this. Like it just links back and forth. I'm only mentioning it just so if you're suddenly like, wait, I thought I was on eBird. Why am I on the Macaulay Library? That's why they're all kind of tied together. There's a website called All About Birds that is sort of like an online field guide. So if you're on eBird and you kind of drill your way down for more information about a species, you'll find yourself on the All About Birds website. which is a free website with accounts of all the North American bird species you're likely to see. There's another one that's now called Birds of the World, I think. It used to be called North American Birds or Birds of North America, Birds of North America. Anyway, that's a subscription-based site. You have to pay for access to it, but it has lots and lots of information, even more than the All About Birds site. There's the eBird mobile app. So this is something you would run on your phone, your smartphone, that you mainly use to enter your checklists in the field. And we'll talk about how that works in a minute. What's else? And there's the Merlin app, which is sort of a new app that they put out just recently in the last year or two, or few years. But it's primarily a tool for identification of birds, and it's really targeted at the beginning birder or maybe intermediate birder. It uses eBird data to help you identify birds you're looking at in the field. It helps use the eBird data to give you a very limited list of the birds expected to be seen in your area. So it can be really useful that way. Because I know, certainly for me starting off, and for a long time after starting off, that was always one of the challenges of identifying a bird that I saw, was, oh, there's 800 of them in this book, I mean, just winnowing it down to the ones I might be looking at is difficult. And then there'll be some very similar ones. It turns out one of those is quite common in the area, but the others are not, but it can be hard to figure that out just from a standard field guide. But the eBird data knows that. And so in the Merlin app, it takes that into account in showing you the suggested birds you might be seeing. So I'm not really going to talk about Merlin further in this discussion, but I certainly recommend it. I don't use it a lot myself because I've sort of educated myself out of that audience. I think I've got to the point where it's like I usually know, I have some idea of what I'm looking at already. I mean, it's fun to use it and say, wow, it's really good. It's right, but I don't need it so much to figure out what I'm looking at all the time. So let's see. It's the one thing I didn't mention. So this whole set of resources is developed and maintained by the people at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So this is associated with Cornell. It's in, is it Ithaca, New York? They're in New York. Yeah, Ithaca. And it's it's just a dedicated group of ornithologists and hardcore bird nerds. Yeah, Marvin, I see you waving. Did you have input you wanted to make? Let me unmute you. I'm not able to unmute you. I'm not sure why. Maybe you can unmute yourself. I see you talking, but I don't hear anything, Marvin. There we go.
Toward the end of the presentation, I'll add something.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then I'll make sure I get to the end.
Continue on.
Okay, thanks. And basically what they've done there at Cornell with this whole set of resources, I'm just going to call eBird for simplicity's sake, is they're kind of making a deal with birdwatchers. And the deal they're offering is, we're going to give you these really great tools to help you birdwatch, to help you do what you want to do already in your birdwatching, and to make it more efficient and easier and more fun. And it's all free. You can just use it as you wish. And in return, we're going to get data. We're going to get data from you. So it's a big citizen science project is the idea. That if they can give people these good tools for submitting their bird sightings information, the better job they do of making it useful to bird watchers, so they want to do it, aside from the value to the scientific community, they just want to do it for their own reasons, that they can harness that energy and they can get good data, that they can do things like creating these migration animations we've been looking at in the last several meetings, that all comes out of eBird data, this really good fine-grained information by date and location of just what birds are being seen out there by people. And it's a really cool project. And, I would probably be inclined to participate in it just for the contributing of data to the scientists, but I don't have to make that choice because I really want to use it for my own purposes because it's really cool and a handy way to keep track of what I'm seeing and slice it and dice it in different ways and seeing what other people are seeing and using that to inform my own bird watching. Okay. And I guess just one other thing I will say about the work they do there. I'm I'm very impressed with the quality of the eBird website and the quality of the development process. I've worked in web development, professionally for a couple decades now. And, there's companies that do a better and worse job, or you see, there's good websites and not so good websites, and there's a lot of junk out there. And eBird is really a good website in my view. They've done a very good job of using the web in a way that I think really, it just really impresses me. And I'm hard to impress in this area. So I'll just say that about them and move on. Well, I'm going to talk now about specific features in eBird. And I'm going to go in rough order of, these are all things that I use myself in eBird, but it's arranged in an order that goes by the required user investment of time in terms of time and energy. So as a user, you can use a lot of the features of eBird without even creating an account. And I know from some, the questions that folks have asked previously that this is something that's interesting to people. So I'm going to start off with that. These are things you can do with eBird without needing to set up an account or contribute your own checklists to it. It's just publicly available. You can go in there and look at this stuff. So that's what I'm going to start with. And then I'll go through kind of in order, like other things you can do that get more and more involved. Okay, so I'm going to start by, what am I going to do? I'm going to share my screen is what I'm going to do. And the rest of this is basically going to be a live demo, which, working in the tech sector, you never want to do a live demo. It's always fraught with risk, but that's okay. We'll take our chances. Okay, I'm going to try just sharing this window. Oops, no, let's share computer sound and optimize for video. There we go. Okay, so if I have done this correctly, you are now seeing my checklist I'm working through. Let's see. So do you see a blank, like a new Google search page now?
Yes.
Okay, so you're seeing the tabs. That's good. And let me do one more thing so I can keep track of what I'm doing. Okay. All right, so let's go to eBird. So my browser helpfully fills it in for me. So here I am, and I'm actually logged in on eBird. So I'm going to log out because we're talking about things you can do without being logged in. So here's your view of eBird if you're not logged in. You're just in there checking it out. And they give you, I got to do a couple other things here. Okay, so are you now, yeah, you're still seeing that, good. So one thing I'll point out really quickly is this help link up at the top. eBird has a really nice help system. They have these articles describing how to do lots of different things in eBird. Actually got stuff about Merlin first, that app I was talking about. But here under eBird, the eBird section, they got getting started, pretty much anything you want to do in here, you're going to be able to find a nice article explaining how to do it. Some of the other features it talks about. It also has a search here, so you can just say, how do I create an account? And it'll show you, examples of different things it thinks might be related to that. So, I'm not going to talk about the help content more, but I just wanted to show it to you so you kind of saw what the story was there. All right, let's go back to eBird. Okay, so a really important thing to be familiar with on eBird is this Explore page. So I'm going to click on the Explore link up at the top. And it gives you two primary ways to explore the information in eBird. And then there's lots of other cool things under that. But I'm just going to focus on these two primary ways. So you can explore by species or you can explore by location. Right? So let's start off by species. Someone give me a bird species of interest. Rob, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, because I tried to find white-eyed vireo.
Okay, yeah, let's look at that. It's a topical
And what
bird.
I got on the map was purple areas.
Yeah.
Rectilinear areas.
Yeah, so let me show you that because this is good to understand because this is key to kind of drilling your way down into location information for a species. So one handy trick is that you can just type in the Bander code, the four-character Bander code. So WEVI is the Bander code for white-eyed vireo. You just take the first letter of each of the words and then the first two letters of vireo, and you can get it that way. You can also type the whole thing in, but that's just a handy way to get it. So you type that, it pops up the matching choice, and you click on it. So here we are on the white-eyed vireo page in eBird. Quite a snazzy looking bird that belts out a scratchy chick, vireo chick song, which a lot of birders in Santa Barbara have heard in the last week, because there's a white-eyed vireo up by UC Santa Barbara that people have been checking out. So if you scroll down here and you want to know, well, where is it seen, right? Where is this white-eyed vireo seen? And it shows you a map, but it shows these shades of purple. And what it's showing you is the abundance of the bird. So dark purple is more abundant, light purple is less abundant. And this is based on eBird sighting submissions. But you know, it's not very useful if I want to know about Santa Barbara and I'm looking at this big map of the US. One quick way to zoom in is over here on the left. It says choose a region in this weekly bar chart section. I use that a lot because it's just a handy shortcut to zoom in. So when I click on that, it pops up this region search up here, and I can just type in Santa Barbara. And as you see, there are several Santa Barbaras to choose from, but the one we want is that first one in the list. So I click on that. And now it does some interesting things. Now the stats it gives me are Santa Barbara specific stats. So there's been 24 observations of this bird in eBird in Santa Barbara County. It shows you the bar chart. So this is the time of year when it's seen. And over here, we've got the range map is centered on Santa Barbara County, right? So I'm going to click on large map because I want to see this in, oh, to see the large map, it wants me to sign in. I'm not going to click on the large map. I'm going to go back where I was, because we're talking about what you can do without being signed in. But one thing I will do here is I'll start to zoom in on the map. And at a certain point, as I zoom in, I am hopeful, oh, you know what? They don't show you the pins if you're not logged in. Okay, well, this is good for me to know.
That answers my question.
Okay, so if we were to log in, we could see these pins. So I want to entice you to get an eBird account. So I'm going to go ahead and log in so we can start seeing what it actually looks like if you're signed in. And I'll just jump ahead to talk about setting up your eBird account. If you don't have one, you can create an account. And you know, you can have various reasons why you might not wish to create your own eBird account. And you know, I'm not telling anyone that they should sign up if they don't wish to. They have reasons not to. Brody, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question about this?
So I was just wondering, so you have to get an account to put in an eBird list, correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay, and do you have to put in like right where you live? It was asking for my address.
You know, I was going to talk about this later on, but let's talk about it now. So when you put in an eBird list, an eBird checklist of birds you have seen, they want to know the location. And that's an important part of the scientific value of the list, right? That is one of the key elements of the list that they are really, you know, focused on getting. They don't need to know that it's your personal address if you happen to be putting in a list from your personal address. If you are sensitive to the idea of putting in a checklist from the specific location where you are, and there can be lots of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. Maybe you just don't, you've got a really cool rare bird, you don't want people visiting there, or you just, you know, for whatever reason, you can choose to hide the list from public output. And you know, that's something I do rarely. I usually do it if I've got a really rare bird that for some reason is sensitive and people are, you know.
So how does that work? Like, so no one can see that? No one can see that?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, if you're going to do it a lot, that maybe would be, I don't know. I mean, it's up to you. You can do that if you want. You can do it every time if you want. It means that other people will not be able to see and interact with your information. You know,
Okay.
which can be a good thing if, you know, again, if you have concerns around that. You will still be able to see it and interact with it online. So you can still organize your sightings in eBird that way. And it's just, it's a choice when you're submitting the checklist. You can just choose hide this list from public output.
So once you hide it from the public output, will you be able to take that list and put it onto the public output or no?
Yeah, you can change it at any time if you want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And you know what they kind of frown upon is the idea of putting in incorrect location information as a way to obscure where a list happened. You can put in like generic information. Like sometimes what you'll see is a list where somebody has a rarity at their home and they want to report it, but they don't want to report it as at their home, because again, they don't want a bunch of bird watchers showing up, banging on their door, asking to see the bird, or for, whatever reason. And they'll just make a like generic location in the middle of the town that they're in and say, well, I saw it in this town, but I'm not saying exactly where I saw it. And you can do that. It's no one at eBird will stop you from doing that. It maybe lessens the scientific utility of the list a little bit, but that would be a way to still share the list and not hide it from public output, but also obscure the location if that was a concern.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, and in general, eBird goes out of its way to give you lots of flexibility. If there's a thing that a significant number of eBird users might want to be able to do, they've tried to put that feature in there so they can do it. So I would certainly encourage you to, if that's a big concern or a potential stumbling block to you creating an account and using it, I'd say, you could explore that. And I think there's a good chance you could come up with something that solves your problem and still lets you submit your information. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in now so we can look at what it looks like when you have created an eBird account. So here we are back at that wide-eyed Vireo page. I can now hopefully go to the large map. Yeah, it lets me go to the large map now that I'm signed in. And as I drill my way down, at a certain point, it's going to stop showing these gray boxes and start showing pins, right? These markers. And you can actually make it show those sooner if you want. If you check this box here, if I zoom out, they'll still be visible, right? At a certain point, it's going to go back to the purple boxes, and I can make this whole sidebar go away. So, so here we are in eBird, showing sightings of white-eyed vireos in Santa Barbara County. And as you can see, there's very few, but these red ones are the ones from the past 30 days. And this is where this one bird has been out at. Mostly here at the Camino Corto open space is where people have seen it. A few people have seen it over at the Devereaux Slough location. I think it's the same individual bird, just kind of moving back and forth.
What's that carp location?
Let's go look. It's like Carpinteria Creek. So there was one reported there in 1987.
I wonder if it's still there.
Very likely not still there. But this one up here is very likely still there since Mario saw it later today. It's been a very cooperative bird, at least, if you can get it singing. If it's not singing, it's very difficult because it skulks in the interior of the bushes and it's hard to see. But if it's singing, then you're looking good. So you can actually look at the individual sightings. So here's the list of sightings with the most recent ones at the top. So the last one in eBird was from 2 days ago. Dika saw them there. Our own Tom Beland, yay Tom, saw it on the same day. Here's a person with an audio recording. So let's go look at George Chapman's checklist. And we can listen to the recording he made. Can you guys hear that? Thumbs up, thumbs down. So I think I shared the computer audio. Were you guys able to hear the Vireo?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So that's the kind of cool thing you can see in eBird if you dig in at the species level. Let me go back out to the white-eyed Vireo page though and talk in a little more detail. If you scroll down, you get top photos in eBird. Now because I just clicked on the Vireo's name. Because I just clicked on the Vireo's name, I'm no longer zoomed in on the Santa Barbara specific data. So now I'm just looking at all white-eyed Vireo data in eBird. So it has the top photos. These are the highest rated photos of the white-eyed Vireo. I can look at those. Here's the top rated audio recordings, top rated video recordings of white-eyed Vireos. And then if I want to see more about the bird, I can click through to all about birds, which again is a free website, also from Cornell Lab, but it has more sort of standard field guide type information about the bird and cool facts and other cool stuff. You can drill down and find out more about its life history. Very cool. And if you're really obsessive and you're willing to pay for the subscription, you can go to Birds of the World, and then you can see just vast amounts of information here. I do have a subscription, so I can click the sign in link, and you can see all this kind of stuff you can get on white-eyed vireos. It's a little out of control. You could spend all night reading about the white-eyed vireo, which is very fun. Okay, but let's back up. So back here in eBird, that's kind of a quick version of drilling down for information about a species. The other kind of broad category of searching you can do, or exploring you can do with this eBird Explore link, is over here on the right. This is explore by locations. So let's say I want to explore Santa Barbara County. And again, I can pick Santa Barbara County there. And it takes me to an overview page for Santa Barbara County. There's a
white-tailed kite.
What's that?
White-tailed kite.
Yeah, so this is species. These are sightings in Santa Barbara County organized by the most recently seen birds. So the most recently reported bird was this white-tailed kite and the mourning dove from James Francis's list today. If you click on a date, it'll take you to that individual checklist, and you can see, oh, it was recorded at this location, and here are the birds that were submitted. Another cool thing you can see at this level is these bar charts. I'm always showing you these histograms of occurrences of birds. So this is a Santa Barbara County specific bar chart for every species reported in eBird in Santa Barbara County. So you can go down the list and kind of see what's there to be seen at different times of year. Okay, so I'm falling way behind in my content, so I'm just going to leave this behind. Something I spend a lot of time on is the recent visit tabs, the recent visits tab for Santa Barbara County, because I come in here and it's like my daily newspaper. I see who's been eBirding in Santa Barbara County today, and I just say, oh, Elaine was out at North Campus Open Space. What did she have there? And I'll click through and I'll see what Elaine had there. Just fun stuff. Let's see. So I talked about, so let me talk about this. Let me talk about hotspots and the distinction between hotspots and personal locations. So when you're inputting your information in eBird, you're submitting your list, one of the key things you need to tell is the location, like I was talking about earlier with you, Brody. And hotspots are locations that tend to get birded a lot. And a nice thing, if you're birding at a location that has a hotspot designated, is that if you use that hotspot, then its information gets summarized here under the hotspot for people who are, say, new to the area, or just not new to the area, but just want to know what are the hotspots, what are the locations in Santa Barbara County that are getting the most birds reported. You can come in here and they've shown you a ranking of these hotspots by the number of species reported. You can see one and think, oh, wow, I want to know about Carpinteria Creek. And you can click through and there'll be a page similar to the page we were just looking at for Santa Barbara County, only now it's a page that is specific to the Carpinteria Creek hotspot. So it's got recently seen birds, it's got recent visits. Oh, look at that suspicious customer there, was there a few days ago. All kinds of cool stuff.
Can I add something about the hotspot feature?
Yeah.
If you are traveling and you know you're going to visit these hotspots, this will let you print out a checklist of everything that's been identified at that location, which I find really handy to take with me in the field.
Yeah, you totally can. Yeah, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's just really helpful because then you can just, okay, yeah, that's probably this, or just to know what's ever been there.
Yeah, and if you click on the illustrated checklist tab for a hotspot, it basically gives you, in taxonomic order, every species that's ever been reported at that hotspot with a histogram. So you see what time of year it was reported or when it's more frequently reported. If there are photos of the species from that location, it'll include the top rated photos. There's audio recordings, same thing. So yeah, you can just kind of go down the list and see what's there. Okay, so let's see. I talked about hotspots for. Oh, and so then personal location. So sometimes you want to you go birding and you want to submit an eBird checklist, but you don't want to. There is no nearby hotspot. You know, the hotspot is a little bit further away. It's not really where you birded. So that's a situation where you want to use a personal location, and you just say, you know, I'm just going to report it right here, right where I am. Or you can go on a map and you can drop a pin where you specifically want to report it. And that's fine. You know, that data goes into eBird and it, you know, is available to other people to look at. It's a little harder for them to, you know, to browse for it and find it. They'd have to search by the species to get your checklist. You know, they have to search for a species that shows up in your checklist because there is no hotspot associated with it. It doesn't give just any eBird user cannot get a list of just all the personal locations that are out there. Those are specific to you. Okay, so I talked a lot about entering the data, but let me show you how it actually works in the app, because that is something that I wanted to show you.
John, I'm going to have to take off.
Okay.
Thanks. Hope to see
Yeah,
you next
thanks,
time.
Rob. Yeah, well, we will be here. Okay, so to do this, I need to join the meeting from my phone. And let's see if I can figure that out. I want to make sure I turn off my. Yeah, that's what I don't want. I don't want that echo. Okay, so, and then I think I can share the meeting from my phone. I mean, I can share my phone's screen to the meeting. Okay, so with any luck, you're now seeing my phone screen. Are you folks seeing my phone? Give me a thumbs up. All right, I see a
Yes.
thumbs up. Excellent. Okay, so I've installed the eBird app on my phone. So I'm going to just click on that. And this is what you'll see when you launch the eBird app. And it's got a big green button that says Start Checklist. If you don't see that button, it's because you're on a different tab, maybe, like down here at the bottom. So in that case, just click on the Submit on the far left, and that'll bring you back to that. And you just click Start Checklist. And it shows you something like this. And what you're basically doing here is you're in a checklist. It's keeping track of my location because I made that choice when I started the list to track my location. And I can just input species. So let's say I'm out here bird watching at my home. I tap in that, that window at the top next to the magnifying glass, and that brings up a text entry screen. And the first thing it wants to know is a number. So I'm going to say, oh, I have one. Let's say I have a northern mockingbird. Well, I can type in just the Bander code again. I could type in mockingbird or northern mockingbird, but it's easier to just type NOMO. And even before I finish it, it's filtered down to that. So I tap on the mockingbird, and that puts one mockingbird in my list. So something that I do when I'm entering an eBird list, I'm going to cancel to make the little text entry widget go away. Down at the bottom of the screen, I now have this green check mark with a circled blue 1. That's the count of species that I have so far in my checklist. And I'm going to tap on that 1 at the bottom. And now it only shows me the species I've actually entered. So I'm almost always entering species by typing in their Bander codes. I'm not scrolling through the list of all the birds to find the one I want to enter. So this is just an easier way for me to see what's already on my list. So let's put some other birds on there. Maybe I got 2 house finches. I don't know, what else do I have? I have a hooded oriole. So let's say I'm continuing to birdwatch and I see a second hooded oriole. Like the first one was a female and this one's a male, so I'm sure it's an additional bird. So I want to add a hooded oriole. Well, I can do that by typing in one HOOR again, the way I did the first time, or I can just tap on the one to the left of where it says hooded oriole in my existing list, and it'll bump that up by one. Okay, let's say I have 5 cedar waxwings fly over. Put those on the list like that. And let's say another flock goes by and I count them and there's 15, and I'm like, you know what? I think I want to, that could be part of the same flock, but I think I should go up to 15. I could sit there and I could, tap on that number 10 times to go up by ones, or I can just click on where it says cedar waxwing. It takes me to the observation details screen. And I've already got the number highlighted. I can just type in the new number I want to replace it. And then I click done, and I'm done. Okay. So, it's pretty simple. When I go bird watching with my wife, she complains that I'm always looking at my screen. I'm not looking at the birds enough. So maybe I should get better. I try to get better at like entering the birds every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or so. I get anxious I'm going to forget one and not include it. But probably better if I didn't like play with my phone quite as much when I'm birding. But any questions about the data entry part? I'm seeing no raised hands. I can't actually see everybody's screen at the moment. So if you are raising your hand and you're not visible on the screen, just unmute yourself and chime in.
Brody's trying to talk to you.
Oh yeah, Brody.
I was wondering, how do you actually get to that little spot where you press get started to make the eBird checklist?
So you have to install the app on your phone. There is a link on the eBird help page about installing the app that takes you to it's either the App Store if you're using a Mac or an Apple product, an iPhone, or it's the, what's it called, the Google Play Store if you've got an Android phone, something like that.
Yeah, I've got an Apple.
Yeah, so you go to the App Store, you install the eBird app, and then you just tap on it to start it. And then once you're in there, it's by default, the screen that comes up has that big green button to start a checklist, or if not, there's a submit choice in the lower left-hand corner that'll take you to where you start a list. So let's go ahead and finish up this list. Oh, was there other questions while we're here in the app? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say stop. That's the green button in the lower corner there. And it wants me to confirm, am I really done birding? Because it's keeping track of my travel. I didn't do any traveling on this list, but usually there's like a little trail that I've followed, and it wants to keep track of that for me. I'll say stop track. And it's helpfully reminding me that I have not chosen a location yet. So I'm going to click on that top part where it says choose location. And I've got choices. I can either look at recent locations where I've submitted a checklist and choose one of those, or I can go with nearby locations and it sorts them. These are either personal locations that I've used or hotspots, and they're sorted by distance from where I am right now. Or I can look at a map and I can move around on the map to find the spot that I want to submit from. But I'm just going to say, oh yeah, this is just Mesa Lane in Carpinteria, so I've chosen that for the location. It asked me if this is a complete checklist of birds I was able to identify, and that's an important question. eBird wants you, if you're willing to include complete checklists. They want you to give them a list of all the birds you're able to identify. So if you put in a list and you only include like 3 or 4 birds, but there were lots of other birds around that you didn't identify, that's an incomplete checklist. And you're welcome to do that, but eBird would prefer, in terms of the scientific value of the list, if you try to do complete checklists when you can. So this was a complete checklist. You can add some checklist comments. I'm not going to bother. And then you can submit. So I'll click submit, and off it goes. And I've submitted that list, which in a way is bad because this is not a real list. I've just injected garbage data into the eBird ecosystem. So let's fix that. I'll get rid of that list. And that allows me to show you what it looks like to go back in the eBird website and adjust and edit your list that you previously submitted. And in fact, when you submit a list in eBird, you have about an hour or so before it shows up in publicly visible output, with a few exceptions. If there's a rarity on the list, it'll go out in rarity reports right away, because people who are really into getting those rarity reports as fast as they can are interested in that kind of stuff. But in general, people won't be able to see your list for an hour. So you have an hour to fiddle around with it and fix any problems with it before anybody else is going to see it. And you can continue to fix problems with it later if you find out there's a problem with the list. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop my screen broadcasting. All right. Hello, everybody. Now I can see you. And I will go ahead and share this screen again, my computer screen. This one is what I want. Okay, so we're back in eBird now. Let me go to something I haven't shown you yet, which is my eBird. So since I'm logged in, I have access to this my eBird page. And this is information specific to my things I've submitted in eBird. And over in the right-hand column, there's a bunch of useful things, but one that's particularly important is manage my checklists. So I'm going to click on that. And it's going to show me my recently submitted checklist, including that one that I just submitted. So if I click view or edit, I can see that list. And I can do some different things here. If I add some photos I wanted to add, I could click on add media, and it puts me in this. And they're telling us that they've had so many users lately that sometimes it takes a while to process uploaded audio, which is good to know. So in here, I could drag photos onto these records, and I would be able to upload my photographs that go along with the list. Or I can upload WAV or MP3 audio files that go along with this list. And that's what happens on this screen. But actually what I want to do is delete the list. So under the checklist tools, I have a delete choice. Am I sure I want to delete this list? Yeah, this is not a real list. Are you really sure you want to delete this list? Yes, I am really sure I want to delete this list. Okay, so that list is gone now. Okay.
So John, can I ask you a question?
Please, yeah.
So what if you've entered the bird in and you decided, or you get back, what kind of information do you get back that the bird is not what you thought you saw?
Oh yeah, this is a really good question. And this is, I'm already off the end of the time I had scheduled for this. Let me move right ahead to that and talk about the eBird review process. So there is a process in place, and eBird has evolved over the years. It's been around for a while, and as people have used it, problems were identified early on, and they've gone a long way to addressing those problems. And one problem is that bad data gets in there. People are reporting things that they probably should not be reporting, that are probably incorrect identifications. And back in the good old days when I was learning to be a bird watcher, and I was really excited, as I am now, when I thought I saw a rarity, I would check that off in the book. I had a pretty low bar, to say, oh, wow, I really think I saw that rare bird. How cool. And I would put a little checklist in my field guide, and I'd treasure the memory, and no one else would ever know. So it didn't really matter, right? I was probably wrong, it turns out, and I would maybe come to realize that years later. But it was okay. No one was really being harmed by that. So eBird is different, right? In eBird, you're submitting this information and it's going out there and it's becoming part of this record. And if there are people reporting really unusual birds for a location, like say a masked booby for Santa Barbara County, offshore waters, people want to make sure that's really there. They want to know, was that a masked booby, or was that a person who's just a beginner who doesn't, really know what a masked booby looks like, or got very excited at a kind of weird looking gull and decided, yeah, it's probably a masked booby. So you get into the eBird review process, and there are a bunch of things that will get your submitted sighting flagged for review. But the main one is rarity. If you're reporting a particularly rare species, and I was going to show you this when I was in the phone and I forgot to, but that's okay because we're trying to move quickly. But if you are in there, like if Jenny, I don't know if you used eBird out when you submitted your masked booby, but if you went to submit your masked booby in eBird, it told you, hey, this is a rare bird you're trying to submit. We need some extra documentation here, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it'll ask you for supporting details. And I didn't really demonstrate it, but in eBird, when you're entering the checklist or later on back at your computer, you can supply observation details. You can give a little text narrative for that particular observation. And you can say, oh, you know, we saw this, and these are the features that we saw. You know, people tend to use those observation details in ways that are very helpful for the review process, and sometimes in ways that are not that helpful for the review process. Things that are not that helpful for the review process is, oh, I saw it at the top of this tree right by the fire hydrant, and it was really exciting, and my friend was there and they saw it too. And I mean, they're all kind of relevant, but not really. What the eBird reviewers, and these are volunteers, typically, you know, fairly expert bird watchers with experience in that area who do this eBird reviewing process. What they're looking for is, you know, the specifics of what you actually saw. And, you know, the closer in the time to the time of the observation you can enter that, the more reliable it is. So if you can enter it in the field, that's great. If you enter it, you know, when you get home, that's okay. If you're entering it a week later, that starts to get kind of subject to the, you know, human psychology being as it is. You know, you at that point, you're not sure if you're remembering what you saw or what you told yourself you saw, or, you know, who knows. But the specifics of what you saw, how you eliminated similar species. So if it's like with the case of a masked booby, you know, there's a good, not a good, but I mean, there's also a decent chance it was a Nazca booby, which is a very similar looking booby, but its beak is sort of rich orange yellow, and the Nazca booby is sort of a light yellow. So, you know, if you knew that and you looked specifically for that, you can mention that in the observation details. The other thing that you can include as far as documenting your sighting, if you have them, are photographs, which are great. Photos, you know, a single bad photo will trump thousands of words of text documentation in the reviewer's mind. That's what they really want to see if they can. Or a sound recording, if it's a species that has a distinctive vocalization, will also be very helpful. So I said I would show you Jenny's booby photos, so we should do that. We should go back to, let's go to explore. It's not going to let me see it. Okay, so this is actually a good example of what I'm going to talk about. So let me talk about it. So we're coming here and we say masked booby, and we look for records of it. And we look for records in Santa Barbara County. So if we come in here and we look at the large map and we show point sooner and we make that go away. Her sighting was out here. Well, it's not showing up. And the reason it's not showing up is it's still in an unconfirmed state as far as eBird is concerned. So if it's a rarity that trips these filters that they've set up, you know, the ones that prompt you to give information, extra details, those details have to be evaluated by the experts. They have to decide whether or not to approve it, whether or not to confirm it. And they can choose to confirm it. They can choose to, you know, not confirm, to leave it as to flag it as unconfirmed. And if they do that, if they flag your report as unconfirmed, it will continue to show up in your personal eBird lists. Like, you will still see it there. You'd have to actually go to some trouble to even tell that it had been flagged as unconfirmed, right? In this case, I don't think it's been flagged unconfirmed. It just hasn't been flagged as confirmed yet, and that's why it's not here. But at that point, when it's flagged as unconfirmed, it will not show up. It will not start showing up in the public output. So it'll be hard to find it. If a user, though, you know, looks, I mean, there's various ways it will show up. So for example, I'm going to go back to my eBird and show you another feature I wanted to show in more detail. I'll just show you it quickly. Go to manage my alerts and look at rare birds for Santa Barbara. This is an alert that you can set up. So any reported birds that trip those rarity filters will be listed here for a week. And we come down here and we see the report of the masked booby by Craig Murray and Jenny Slaughter. And I can go click on the date to look at the checklist. So here is her checklist. And here are her photos. And if you click on the photo, it'll show you an enlarged version of it. So I think this is probably the clearest photo in terms of the beak. Is that right, Jenny? Yeah, and you know, it's a small photo. It's a kind of distant photo. I mean, it would be great to have a better one, but it's way better than no photo at all. Like, for myself, I would look at this and think, yeah, that's probably a masked booby. But I suspect that I mean, I don't know this, but I would suspect that the 4 or 5 people who are, kind of in this eBird review process are interested in things like Santa Barbara rarity reports are hotly debating your masked booby photo as we speak, that there's an email chain going back and forth that you may or may not be included on, in which they're, kind of considering the finer points of the date and the location and the appearance and, alternatives like, well, what if it was a juvenile Nazca booby? What would that look like? And, so on and so forth.
That is funny. No, I just imagine, who are these people and what are these conversations? It must be fascinating. And I did make all the mistakes that you mentioned. I did not include enough information at the time. And I still haven't completely listed everything that I noticed about that bird, which originally it appeared like it was oiled. There were faint brown streaks on it, and and it wasn't scared of us. It wasn't flying away from us. So for a minute, I thought, boy, this thing's in trouble. Maybe something's wrong with it. All these weird things.
Yeah, which is certainly possible that was the case, right?
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, so this is an example of what happens when you report a rarity. Another thing that can happen is if you report a high count. So if you, say that you had, I don't know, 50 California towhees, on your checklist. That I'm not sure what the actual limit is, but there was a number for each species that if you exceed that number, it will prompt you in the eBird app to give more data. They want to evaluate that. And for some species, it's very small. That, like for masked booby, the number is 1. If you submit a single report of a masked booby, you're going to be prompted for additional details. Other species, they're fine if you give it 1, they're fine if you give it 10. You get to 20 and it's like, whoa, that's a high count. And the advice that they give you if you dig through the information on eBird about how to deal with these situations is, look, don't lower the count based on us, giving you that message. We don't want to skew the data in that way. We want you to be aware that that's a high count for that location and date, because these filters are date specific as well. So just be aware of that. It would be good for you to give some additional information, put in a little text description of how you arrived at that count. And sometimes if you've got a big flock of birds, you can't count them individually, but you estimate them by tens, or there's other approaches that they, again, have helpful information on eBird that talks about how to estimate these big numbers. It's fine. You can make a decent guess that's got real scientific value of the large number of birds you're seeing. They just want a little bit of detail of what the process was that you used to arrive at that number. So, that's the kind of thing that you can, again, and that goes into the review queue that the eBird reviewers look at. And they may or may not, send you an email. The way you'll normally encounter this, if you're, submitting a bird it's a good bird or a rare bird or a high count, if you don't include enough detail in the submission for the reviewers to be comfortable with confirming it, they'll send you an email. And they're very polite. It's a very civilized process. You shouldn't be stressed about it. But they're just like, well, can you tell us a little more about what you saw, or why you think it's that bird that you reported it as, or did you consider this alternative bird, and if so, how did you exclude that bird? Stuff like that. Okay, I've basically run out of the time I wanted to meet, and I haven't talked about some of this stuff, so I'm just gonna pause there and say, anything about eBird that you're particularly interested in looking at quickly or getting a quick take on, this is your chance to ask about it. So anything else, the floor is wide open. Tell me anything you would like to see about eBird, and we will go take a look at it.
I just wanted to say that really helped me with it, and just thank you.
Oh yeah, well, you're very welcome, Brody. You always, I'll just say too, you always are a big contributor to these meetings, both in person when we're at the library and since we've been doing them online. So I really appreciate your participation, and thank you for I look forward to seeing you in the meetings every week. So I'm really glad you were here.
John,
you.
Yeah.
this is off topic, okay?
Well, it's fine. The topic is officially over. We can branch out now. So whatever you want to ask about is great.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send you a photo of an interpretive sign from Monroe, Washington.
Okay.
That is another site where the Vox's swift go down a school chimney.
Oh, neat.
And the chimney was going to be taken down because it was deemed unsafe. But several bird organizations, including the Audubon Society up there, got money together to reinforce the chimney so it wasn't taken down. So it's a similar effect to the man in Portland. But this interpretive sign, I'm going to send you the photo of it. You can send it out to the people in the class if you want.
Well, if you send it right now, I'll show it on the screen. I'm still screen sharing, so as long as it's appropriate for sharing.
Yeah, let's see if I, okay, so I'm going to send it to you now. I'm going to send it to you via text.
Okay. I will look for that.
Okay, here it comes.
Oh, except I think I closed my messaging app because I was getting beeped, but I'll go start it up again. So while I'm doing that, are there any
So
other?
let's see what. It's still sending it. So.
Okay, so I'll wait for that. Any other questions while we're waiting for it?
Yeah, Santa Barbara birding. The birding site of Santa Barbara birding.
Oh yeah. You wanted to mention that? That's a really good point. So yeah, I don't happen to remember the address offhand. Actually, I just saw it. It helpfully completed it for me because I go there so often. So sbcobirding.com is a website that was set up by, I think, Jamie Chavez is the person who set it up, who was also the original regional reviewer for Santa Barbara County in eBird. So we're just talking about the review process. Jamie is very much part of that process, but he has also created this very cool website that has lots of great information on it. Is there anything particular you wanted to talk about there, Tom? Or
I think people are asking, it seems like the same people are going to the rare birds, like the white-eyed vireo. And people knew about this, then maybe there would be more people.
Oh yeah. So in terms of like keeping up on this stuff, and I wanted to talk about this also. So let me go look at this real quick. So again, back on the eBird site, in that My eBird page, there is a Manage My Alerts link towards the bottom. And if you click on that, you can sign up for different kinds of alerts. And the way you do it is you come down here and you say, oh, I really want to know about rare birds in Santa Barbara. So you come down here and you say Santa Barbara, pick the correct Santa Barbara, because you don't want to know about Santa Barbara, Honduras, or maybe you do, but that's fine. And you can subscribe to it, which will cause it to send you an email, or you can just view it. Right? And if you view it, this is what you get in the email. This is what you can view if you view it. And it lets you just go back and look for, these rare bird reports from Santa Barbara County over the last 7 days. And you see a lot of white-eyed vireo reports because it's a very, as I say, a very cooperative bird. And it was, I think, only the 10th white-eyed vireo record in Santa Barbara County ever. So people were motivated to go check it out. So I see that I got Marv's attachment. Oh yeah, cool. Okay, let's see, how can I share that? That is a good question. I can share that if I change the screen sharing. Actually, I think I can do it from within my browser if I'm clever. Yeah, let's try desktop. Is that going to work? Yeah. And it's called image 180, this one right here. So here is the image. So it's a little hard for me to see. So, oh, so this is cool though. So it's basically talking about this chimney and the Vox's swift showing up and spiraling down into the chimney.
For some reason, I can't see what you're looking at.
Oh, is it not coming
I
through?
don't know why. I did something to my screen. So I can see the people, but I can't see your computer screen.
Oh, so in Zoom, you can resize the video thumbnails versus the screen share. So you may have made that
Okay,
the
it's
screen share
okay,
part
I
really
can
small.
see it on my phone, but if the gentleman who told you about this last week, it says Portland, Oregon, he must have gone to Chapman Elementary School because that's number 3 in Portland.
That is actually where he went, yes.
And I went to number 1 in Monroe, Washington.
Neat. So there's a whole string of these places.
Yeah, and there's one in Los Angeles I've never been to. Let's see, I think that's number 6, which is, it says the Chester Williams building in downtown Los Angeles.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I put the link to that Chapman school video in the on the blog for this meeting, and I just thought it was a really great video, and I'd love to go there. I mean, next time I'm up in the Pacific Northwest in September or at any one of these other sites, I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled for a chance to go see the Vox's swifts descending into a roost, because that was very neat. So the one other thing I wanted to mention too, to go back to what Tom was talking about in terms of keeping track of these rarities, there is a mailing list. It's the SBCO birding mailing list. And I think this is it this list or is it the reporting list? Yeah, no, this is the actual checklist of birds in the county. No, this is again the checklist. Where is the thing that talks about the, maybe it's on the links page. Area birding information. You know, I actually know where it is. I should just go there. So I've got where is it? I'm looking for this. So if you go to sbcobirding.groups.io, there is a web archive of this mailing list. And this is sort of an old school internet thing, having a mailing list you sign up for and you can get the notifications. But there is a mailing list that, people who do a lot of birding in Santa Barbara County use to share information and, report what they've been seeing. I highly recommend it. It's got good info. eBird has kind of filled a lot of that space, but these old school tools are still there and still very useful. And especially for people who aren't using eBird, this is a good source of information. Okay, well, is there anything else anyone would like to ask about or discuss before we call it quits? I would have loved to do a little bit more, but as is usually the case, I start talking and can't stop. So I really appreciate everyone coming this long. Yeah, what's that, Brody?
Have you ever seen a wood duck in Santa Barbara?
Yes. I saw some on the Santa Barbara I saw some on the Carpinteria Christmas count, which I think was the first year I participated in it. We went up in Rancho Monte Alegre and had some along the headwaters of Santa Monica Creek. Where else have they been seen? So I think they've been seen fairly recently at the Andre Clark Bird Refuge.
What about Lake Jocelyn?
Yeah, Lake Jocelyn.
Oh, that's right. We had them at Lake Jocelyn on last year on the Christmas count, or maybe they were also at the weird little pond by the market, by Kim's Market on Villa Real had a wood duck also.
Oh yeah, I've seen 2 Canada geese down there recently, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
So wood ducks are not common by any means in Santa Barbara County, but they are out there, and that's the kind of thing that if you're interested in exploring the species, you go into eBird and you can, drill your way down and find out, where has wood duck been seen lately? And that's a good example of the kind of thing you can check out there.
Yeah, it's just mandarin ducks and wood ducks I've just always really liked, and they're just really pretty birds. And
yeah,
the wood duck's beak, it almost looks like fake. The coloring almost looks fake.
The whole thing looks fake to me. I mean, that wood duck looks like it was, designed by an extravagant artist, just like, wow, our guy Or just like, no, more colors, more cool colors,
You're right.
more colors.
Hey,
Okay.
Brody, I've seen them at Lake Jocelyn in February, wood ducks.
Oh.
Yeah, so, it's funny, Lake Jocelyn is just kind of this little, agricultural pond, but, Carpinteria does not have a lot of freshwater wetland habitat. So if there's a freshwater loving duck coming through Carpinteria, it looks pretty good to them, they're going to plop themselves down there. So it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah. Okay, any other
I'll talk
questions
to
or?
See if we can.
Yeah, maybe your grandfather can take you there.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and declare victory. Thank you all for sticking with me through, again, another long meeting. I haven't given any real thought to what to do next week. This is your chance to influence that decision if there's a particular group of birds that you'd like to see covered.
How about corvids?
We can go back to corvids. So corvids was the very first group we ever did. And did we do them again since then?
I don't think so.
We haven't done them online, at least, right? So we can consider this, a fresh slate, and we can go ahead and cover all our favorites. Okay, well, unless I get an idea in the middle of the night that sounds better, corvids it is. Next Thursday at 4 o'clock, we will talk about Santa Barbara County's crows, jays, and magpies. All right. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and shut things down. Oh, actually, you know what? I should have stopped the screen share so we can go back to seeing each other somewhat more effectively. Okay, now having welcomed you back, I will kick you out. So
Thank you.
thanks again, everyone. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And see you next week.
Thank you a bunch.
Yeah, thank you, Brody.
Thank you.
You put these.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
You just put all the slides and everything together every week, and it's a lot of work.
Well, it's a chance to geek out about birds, which, as you can tell, is something I would do with that excuse or without it. So it's just something I would do anyway. So thanks. See you guys next time.
Yeah.